Hello, I want to tell you a story of my journey today. I want to share a little bit about what brought me into an interest in the health and medical missionary work. Because it's not always been a passion of mine. It's not always something that has been a focal point in my life, but it's something that has very much become um, a very important part of my life. So I want to try and take a few minutes and share that story and that journey with you in the hopes that it will inspire you and also encourage you in the faith in simple natural remedies in the health and medical missionary work because it truly is powerful, and I believe that. I remember when I was younger, we used to go to conventions like GYC and ASI, and I remember going through these conventions. There would be booths, and you'd see these booths set up where they had these people selling these cleanses. And I remember walking through those booths when I was younger and thinking, man alive, these guys are quacks. When you talk to them, they talk about going to the bathroom and just a bunch of weird stuff that just really didn't seem like you should be talking about this stuff. And so I thought, man, these guys, they look weird, they sound weird, this is just really weird. And I remember I would just try and avoid that part of the convention because it just, something seemed a little off to me. And fast forward to today, I'm now one of those weird quacks that believes that cleansing is very important and detoxing works. And not only works, but it's crucial to maintaining our health. So the journey is quite fascinating to look back upon in my mind. I think if I was to start the journey, I think it would be years ago, I worked in a warehouse and I spent 2 years, 2.5 years working in this warehouse. And we had to move a lot of freight. We had to move a lot of items quickly, and the rates were very high at which they expected us to complete. So, as whether it was a box of toilet paper or it was air conditioners or a stove, the rate remained the same. And about, um, I forget exactly when it happened. I want to say about 2 years into working there, um, I felt a pain in my back when I went to pick up a box. And so I went and told my general manager and went to the doctor. And to make a long story short, after doing x-rays and MRIs and the whole 9 yards, we found out that I had two bulging discs, a nerve that was pinched, and that the nerve sheath was fraying. And I didn't know what this meant. I didn't know the impact of this. All I knew was that I was in pain, that I was too young to have a back injury, and that I was a vegetarian. And so this shouldn't happen to me. I lifted the way I was told to lift. I did everything right. This shouldn't happen to me. And for the next about year and a half, I went to doctors, I went to chiropractors, I went to physical therapy, I did massages. And while they helped and I saw temporary relief, it never fixed the problem and it kept coming back. And I became very frustrated, feeling like I was too young to start having these issues. What is it going to be like when I'm 60 or 70? Just kind of scared me to think about that. And so I began trying supplements. And I remember one day I went to a supplement store and I literally bought $100 worth of supplements. I just took a whole bunch of stuff I'd read online. This supplement's supposed to help build bones, and this supplement's supposed to help with pain, and this and that. And I just bought a whole bunch of stuff. And I remember after a few weeks and probably about a month or two taking this stuff that it did nothing. Like I didn't notice any benefit, like it wasn't doing anything. And it left me feeling rather discouraged, like this is something I'm going to be living with the rest of my life. And so it was at this point that I just began to study and research and read books on healing and herbalism and ancient healing. I read as much of the works of Hippocrates as I could find translated into English. And I began to see a consistency throughout these works of natural healers, these stories of healing of diseases that even modern doctors say are incurable. And I began to think to myself, if they can heal heart disease, if they can heal cancer, then surely I can heal my back. Like, this can't be the worst thing out there. And so I began to set out on a journey to find out what could heal me. I was convinced that there was an answer now. Like, all these people have realized healing for extreme diseases, late stage diseases. And I felt like maybe this is the answer. Maybe I can actually find the answer. I had went and seen a surgeon, and the surgeon had told me that I had a 50% chance of getting better from the surgery and a 50% chance of being worse. I didn't like those odds too well, so I decided I was going to not go the medical route, what was available to me, because I hadn't done anything for me. I was going to just go completely natural. And so through my research, I began to find herbs that either scientific literature or ancient healers, herbalists had mentioned that would heal the spine or would heal back injuries. And so I began to buy herbs and salves and tinctures and a whole bunch of different formulas. But I was still kind of at a loss as to how to begin. Like, do I take everything at once? Do I start with something, one formula, and move to the other? Like, I wasn't sure exactly how to begin. And there's always, I think, for some reason inside of us, we're always afraid of the natural. It's like, well, what if I take too many herbs? It amazes me today that there's that fear of herbs, but there doesn't seem to be that fear of medicine. And so I wasn't sure. It's like I wanted to be smart, and so I wasn't sure where to start. And so I had bought a whole bunch of stuff, hadn't started quite yet. And it was about this time that a doctor came to our local church, a natural doctor, and she did a presentation, and I was impressed with her relationship with the Lord, impressed with what she had said. And so afterwards, I went and talked to her, and I explained my situation, that I'd hurt my back, and because during her presentation, she had mentioned that disease is a result of violating laws of nature, and every disease has a cause. There's always a cause. There's always a reason. And so I talked to her afterwards, and I was like, it's a nice theory, but I did everything right. Like, I lifted the way I was supposed to. I'm vegetarian. I don't eat meat and garbage. And, I'm an Adventist. So we believe in the 8 laws of health. So, like, I didn't do anything wrong to cause this. And so she began asking me questions. To make a long story short, after she began to ask me some questions, I was very convicted that I had actually violated laws of nature without realizing it, without intending to. And after we had talked, I realized that while I believed in the 8 laws of health, I had violated them unintentionally. When I'd worked there for 2 years, because the rate was so high, because it was such a demanding job, I would often go a long time without drinking water. I and then through subsequent research, I found out that my spine had actually become dehydrated, and it had facilitated the sensitivity and the opportunity for disease to arise, for injury to happen. And once I realized that I had actually been involved in this, not intentionally, I hadn't intentionally violated the laws of nature, but unintentionally I had allowed an opportunity for weakness, which had resulted in injury. And I feel like that was a turning point in my journey, where it was from that point on that I feel like I could see healing. And I feel like that was a necessary part of the healing process, to realize that while I didn't intentionally bring this upon myself, that when nature is violated, it always brings a result. And when there's disease, when there's injury, we have to look for the cause. We have to seek out what we might have done, whether knowingly or not, that would have given rise to the opportunity for disease, decay. And that's been the pinnacle, the cornerstone, if you will, of my health coaching. When people come to me, is there, I always feel like there's always a cause. There's always something or a couple things that have led to getting to this place. And so my journey has helped me see in others that there's always a need for us to self-reflect and to investigate our own lives. Am I doing anything that would place me in a situation that could breed disease, that could bring on weakness in my body? And so after talking to this doctor, after her rebuking me in a very loving way, but nonetheless a rebuke, I sought to rectify what I had violated in nature by drinking proper water and ensuring proper sleep, which I'd also struggled with. And then with my back hurting and the pain, sleep had become a very big issue for me. And so I realized I needed to do the best that I could before I could ask the Lord to bless my efforts in healing. And so that was the point where I consecrated the the herbs, the supplements, the things that I was going to try to the Lord, and just ask the Lord to guide me in that journey. When I would wake up in the morning, sometimes I'd be able to sleep through most of the night okay. But when I'd wake up in the morning, when I went to move or get out of bed, I'd feel sharp pains shooting through my body, like excruciating pain to the point that I had to stop. Like I couldn't push myself, and I had to slowly try to maneuver myself out of bed. And that was probably one of the hardest things in this, is just the pain at those times. I didn't feel pain all the time. When I did feel pain, it was very sharp and excruciating. It was very harsh. After I began to use these herbs, and I'll share a couple of them in a moment, I'd studied what the best herbs were, and I looked into different formulas, and I began to buy the fresh herbs themselves and also the salves containing them. And later on, I began to make some salves for myself. I think it was a couple days after I started using the herbs, maybe 2 days, for the first time in a year and a half. I remember waking up in the morning one morning and just getting out of bed without any pain, without, like, it felt so natural that for a moment I forgot that that's what I had lived for the last year and a half. Not every morning, but a lot of them. And I was amazed that for the first time I was able to get up without the excruciating pain. And I think for the first time, I felt like I can completely reverse this. Like I can completely heal my back. And I was really excited. And so at this point, like I was all in. Like I'll do anything I have to do. I just want to see true healing. Now, I have to admit something before I continue, that while my intentions were good, probably a month after that, month or month and a half after that, as the pain was completely gone at this point, I started to relax my efforts in using the herbs. I guess getting a little bit like I was feeling like it wasn't a big deal anymore. Like, okay, my pain's gone, it's okay. And I quickly realized after that point, because the pain came back, that there's a point where when you're healing, when you're on your healing journey, when symptoms can subside, but it doesn't mean you're completely healed. It doesn't mean you're at the point where you can go back to your old life, where you can just stop. And so after this point, I realized I need to do this consistently. I need to stick with this. And it took a process of about a year and a half, I would say, for me to completely get to a point where I no longer needed to, um, or felt the need to continue using these herbs regularly. But I will say that the relief from the pain, the healing began almost immediately. And I was just really impressed with that because I'd seen therapists, I'd seen chiropractors, I'd seen doctors. I'd done everything possible from a modern medicine perspective. I was prescribed the strongest pain medication, nerve medication, and I was just amazed that a simple herb is more powerful than a drug that what you would say the brilliant minds of our time have created. And it reaffirmed in my mind that we serve a God that is incredible, a God that can see far into the future and knew that we would need these herbs. And he perfectly formulated these plants to provide for the healing of the nations, to provide for our comfort, that our suffering might be alleviated. And I believe he did this so that when we could find healing, that it would give us a foundation upon which to place trust, complete trust in him, to know that he has our best interest at heart, that he will never leave us or forsake us, and that we can trust him completely. And it's definitely impacted my faith in a profound way. You know, my trust and faith in the Lord, because of what I have seen in my journey, um, has greatly impacted how I see the Lord, how I see the gospel, and I'm very thankful for that. It's very powerful in my life. And so, at this point in my healing, I was finding relief from the pain. I was finding, the mobility. I didn't have the mobility issues. I could walk fine, but when I did walk, I would feel a very strong um, strain in my back. I don't know if there's a better word. Um, like when I was walking, like the pressure, a very strong pressure in my back when I would walk, and it even when there wasn't the pain, it was just very uncomfortable, and it made me feel vulnerable or weak in my back. And so I knew that I needed to continue the process for full healing. After, I think about a week and a half after I had started seeing the results from the herbs, I talked to a chiropractor and I asked him, I know that I need to exercise, but I don't know how. I don't want to injure myself worse. I don't want to make things worse. What's the best exercise for somebody that has injured their back? What can I do? And I remember clear as day, he said, pull-ups. I was expecting him to give me a list of things and say, well, be careful with this, don't do this. He just said pull-ups. And he did explain that pull-ups is one of the few exercises that completely releases the pressure on your spine. And he said, you don't even have to do the full pull-up. You can just hang from the pole and allow the body to release pressure on the spine. And I remember the first time I did that pressure in my back, that I could feel it release a little bit. Like it wasn't gone, but I could feel like the body was letting go, like it was giving it room. I was like, wow, okay, maybe this is something. And so I began to do that. And I was doing a couple other exercises recommended by a physical therapist. But I feel like that was a very crucial part for me because it helped me understand the weight that's placed upon the spine. Just walking, sleeping, everything we do, there's always a pressure on the spine, except for doing the pull-up, which I was very intrigued by that. And to this day, I often remember that when people tell me they have back trouble, I always recommend that to them. So I want to share just quickly two of the basic formulas that I used. I did a lot of different things, but I attribute a lot of the healing to this. These formulas, this is where I saw the impact, and these are the formulas that I consistently did throughout the full year in my healing journey. The first one is a calcium tea. It's a herbal calcium formula. It's made from horsetail, which does not in of itself contain a lot of calcium, but it contains silica, which the body is able to convert into calcium extremely easily. Comfrey root, which contains allantoin, which is a cell proliferant, and has made a astounding effect on my body, my healing journey, and in others. I've seen a tremendous impact in others using comfrey root. Just injuries that you wouldn't think could heal, I've seen healed through comfrey. It's just an amazing herb. Probably one of the most underappreciated herbs, to be honest with you. So comfrey root is huge part of this formula, and oat straw and lobelia. And that's the calcium formula, the calcium tea that I used. And then the other one was the direct spinal formula, the bone. It's called the bone and tissue formula. It's based on Dr. Christopher's formulas. And that contains white oak bark, comfrey root, marshmallow root. Marshmallow acts as an adaptogen. Mullein leaf, black walnut leaf, although I also use black walnut hulls, black walnut hull tinctures, and that is very good for killing infections and allowing the body to heal. Grapple root, wormwood, lobelia, and skullcap. And through my research, something I found very interesting is that skullcap is a specific for the spine. And even though it takes months to a year for its work to complete, that the healing attributes of skullcap, how it works, there's no other herb that I've found that's able to take its place. And so it's a slow worker. I think of it kind of like a tortoise. It takes time. It's not overnight, but over a period of time, it can provide complete healing for back, spinal, bone issues. I also found it interesting is that lobelia and skullcap work synergistically in a way that amplifies the effect. And I was very impressed with the nerve quieting effect of lobelia. One of the issues I found as I researched the literature in healing spinal issues is that oftentimes the inflammation and the nerve fraying gets to a point that healing can't take place anymore because there's so much inflammation. And the nerves are so frayed that they're like agitated. And so the body can't begin that healing process. And I found that using lobelia, it quieted my nerves. The tense pressure feeling I would feel in my spine dissipated. It helped me sleep better. And I also feel like it helped facilitate the ability for the other herbs to do their work in healing that may not have been possible without lobelia. So I definitely attribute a lot to lobelia. I feel like comfrey, lobelia, and cayenne played a huge role in healing my back. Like three of my favorite herbs are comfrey, lobelia, and cayenne. Extremely powerful herbs. And I use these formulas as teas, fomentations, or poultices. Either way is fine, and salves. Salves are the easiest, but I found the most relief with either a fomentation or a poultice. And I think the reason is I think more of it is absorbed more quickly and more readily. But that was my experience. And I think people may be different. And one of the things that I also found was that capsules weren't cutting it for me. I first started using capsules, and I wasn't noticing really much difference. And I think for some people, I've heard of people seeing the difference, and I know people are different, but for me, using the capsules, I didn't see it. It wasn't until I was using them topically or taking them either in tincture or tea form that I started to notice extreme benefits. And so I found that fascinating. And that's why oftentimes I'll tell people, if you tried herbs and they don't work, try to change the form. If you've used a capsule, try to make a tea of that herb. And I would say 75 to 85% of the time, those people come back that the herb didn't work for them. And they come back and they're amazed and say, well, it worked this time. And I don't know if that's because sometimes the capsules are low quality, if they're outdated, low potency, or hard for the body to work with. I'm not exactly sure. But I have found in my experience and working with others that oftentimes the tincture or the teas and the fomentations, the poultices work the best. So it's what I generally recommend for most people. There's a couple of things that I learned in my journey that I want to conclude this with. The first one is, as I mentioned earlier, is that symptoms are not disease. They are warnings that something is not right, that we need to address something in the body. And this is something that modern medicine gets completely wrong. And this is why when we're dealing with the COVID pandemic, we have a completely wrong treatment because we have a completely wrong idea of what's wrong. We think that we need to get rid of the symptoms. And if we get rid of the symptoms, that our mortality will drop. But the reality is that the symptoms of COVID are not what we should be afraid of. We should be afraid of the cause. What is causing this? What is the underlying weakness in my body that's allowing COVID to perpetuate, to replicate to a dangerous point? And if we address the cause, then the symptoms will go away on their own. But if we address the symptoms, we will never know the cause, and the cause will come back. So even if we're able to block those symptoms, if we can block them today, who knows that tomorrow, next week, next month, next year, a bigger disease does not arise because we didn't address the issue. So if I could give you a takeaway, an important point to really ponder and think about in your life, is when you have an issue, when you have a disease, a symptom, what do you do? Do you take an aspirin to get rid of the headache? Do you take fever medication to get rid of the fever? Or are you trying to understand what's going on in your body and help the body facilitate healing? Because your body's not trying to kill you, it's trying to save your life. Your immune system is trying to save your life. And if we work with it as God intended, as God created, we can find healing that is far superior, in my humble opinion, than any drug on the market. And I've seen this repeatedly working with people. People come and they'll say, I went through chemo, I went through radiation, and I was told the cancer is gone. And then it came back. And then we did surgery, and I was told the cancer is gone. We got it all. And then it came back. And after 3-4 years of going through this, finally they're just told there's nothing more we can do. The cancer has metastasized. You have a few months to live. It's at this point these people seek the natural route. And it's my hope that as we try and educate people and share our testimonies and our stories, that people will seek the natural route first, not as a last resort after they've been poisoned and harmed by the system. And I'm not putting down anyone who's done those therapies, because I think they're doing the best that they know how. But I would hope that we would choose the natural route first and give God a chance to work in our favor and provide complete healing, because I believe that there's no disease that God does not have a remedy for. And if we seek Him first, if we will address any violations to the laws of nature that are in our lives, if we'll seek to live a lifestyle that is in accordance with His will as described in the Word of God, and then use the simple remedies that He's given us, I believe He can bless that. And I've seen it in my life. I've seen it with people I've worked with. I've seen it with people that have come and told me their own stories in their healing journey. And I pray that as you listen to my simple testimony, I'm not a profound speaker. I'm not great at telling my story, but I feel like it's important for people to know. It's important for people to hear from others that God's ways do work. There's one last point I want to make, and then I'll wrap this up for you. The last one, I think this is very crucial for healing, is that fear cripples our body's ability to heal. One of the greatest diseases that we've experienced over the past year and a half has not been COVID. It's been the disease of fear. And the media has greatly made this a bigger issue than it should have been. Every cell in your body has receptors on it. And one of these receptors is a neuropeptide. And these transmit information. And they also transmit something else. Your immune system actually listens to your words and your thoughts. There's no other reason for there to be neuropeptides on your immune cells. It doesn't make sense, other than the fact that it's listening. The immune cells are listening to your brain. And so when you have a disease and the doctor comes in and tells you that it's terminal, immediately your body is crippled. Your immune system is crippled. But even more importantly than that, it's what you tell yourself. When you tell yourself, I can't make it, I can't do this, I can't heal, this is going to kill me, this is bigger than I am, there's no cure. When you use language like that, even if it's just in your thoughts, your immune system is listening. And they've done studies and they've found that positive thinking alone, thinking positively of your situation alone, increases your immune response and immune ability. Doing nothing else other than thinking positively and being grateful, having a gratitude journal, was shown to improve immune response. And so if I could give you, like I said, 2 takeaways from this, it's that disease does not come without a cause. So if you have a problem, search for the cause, prayerfully ask the Lord to reveal to you the cause that you can rectify it and find answers to that problem. Number 2, fear cripples your system. Don't allow fear into your life. Don't allow fear into your healing journey. Allow hope and peace. Jesus says that He came to give us peace. He didn't come to give us fear. He came to give us peace. He came to give us a sound mind. He came to give us healing. And it's the Lord's desire that our physical body would prosper, as He said, even as much as our spiritual prospers. God desires you to be in perfect health. God desires the best for you. He always has. That doesn't mean we won't suffer at times, but it does mean that God wants your best. And so give Him a chance first. Give His method a try first. Give natural remedies, simple herbs, a try first. And prove God. Then kneel beside your bed and ask the Lord to bless your efforts and see if God does not provide healing in your life. I believe He can, and I believe He will. And I pray that that will be your experience as you place all in His hands and trust Him, because God has never failed any of us. Thank you.